I've got a really good email I'm going to go through with you. There's some really good successes in there, but this guy is struggling because his problem, which he's obviously having a hard time seeing what he's doing, he's vacillating back and forth between acting like a man consistently and moving into his feminine and being unsure of himself. And it's easy to sit and listen to these stories when you're not emotionally invested in the other person, if you're in a situation like this where you're trying to re-attract somebody, which is, I'd say, probably 90% of the people that first find my YouTube channel or my work or my book, they're trying to either fix a relationship that's going sideways or one that's already gone sideways, and they're trying to re-attract somebody they were involved with. It could be a wife, could be a girlfriend, if it's a woman, could be a guy. And when you really care about somebody, because remember, I talk about this a lot, people make purchasing decisions based upon emotions, in other words, what they feel, what they're emotionally anchored to, and we use logic and reason to justify our purchase. And so you'll see that throughout this guy's email. And so you got a couple things going on here. Is this guy went no contact. 4 months later, his ex-girlfriend of, I think it was 2 years, started reaching out. He started hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. But he admits that he sometimes falls under the illusion of action. And so one moment she's all over him, and then the next time he talks to her, he tries to set a date, she gives him a non-answer. So there's also another guy in the picture that she started seeing. And so she'll go from being really hot to being really cold and confused and not sure of the situation. So the goal is to help him and anybody that's in a similar situation find that sweet spot, find that balance between being too cold, being a cold fish, and pursuing too much to where you're right in that sweet spot where it's easy, it's effortless, and things just flow naturally. It's really hard when you're in these situations because it's that fear of loss, worrying that you'll never see that person again. Because, I mean, he's got 2 years in with this particular woman, and it's not just some girl he met off the street and hooked up with once or twice. They have a lot of history together, so it's excruciatingly difficult when you're trying to learn this stuff and apply it properly. So I got a quote that I wrote in this particular topic, and we're gonna go through his email and see what we can do to clean up his game so he can influence his ex-girlfriend, to ditch the other guy that's in the picture and choose him, no longer be confused and unsure of where things are. So the quote says, when a man is unsure of himself and not centered in his masculine essence, this will cause his woman to become unsure of her feelings and attraction for him. This is because he is vacillating back and forth between acting masculine and acting feminine, or basically acting like a man and sometimes acting like a woman. Sexual polarity between masculine and feminine energy is what creates sexual attraction. Masculine and feminine energy are polar opposites energetically. This is also true for gay and lesbian relationships. Without the maintaining of sexual polarity, there will be inconsistent sexual attraction between lovers. When a man acts like a man on a part-time and inconsistent basis, his woman will only be attracted and desire him on a part-time and inconsistent basis. If a man is unsure of himself and what actions to take as a man, his woman will be unsure of being with him romantically. A man does what he must despite the consequences and lives his truth without fear or remorse. So the other thing to keep in mind is, like, what you'll see here is the guy said he did everything right without really knowing for the first 3 or 4 months of his relationship, and she was all over him. She did everything textbook. Even this is way before he ever found out about my work. And then he slowly became the woman in the relationship. So he's got 2 years of emotionally conditioning this woman to expect him to be a certain way. So obviously what you're going to see here is that she is testing the shit out of him, and obviously because he's not getting her back completely and 100% into him, he still hasn't mastered that yet. So let's see what we can do to help him tweak things, shall we? Shall we begin? He says, "Hi, Coach. I'm Bob from Canada, and I, like many of your clients, found your work after my relationship went bad. I met Jessica 2 years ago when we were both 33 years old. We met online, we hooked up instantly, and we connected like crazy. Everything was there, massive chemistry, passion, and the best sex for both of us. After learning about your work, I understood how I destroyed this relationship by my woman-like behavior. In short, I was a dominant alpha in the start of the relationship. She did almost all of the initiating, and in 3 months said the I love you words first. After that, I slowly started to deteriorate into a needy, lovey-dovey mangina whose feelings were everything but unclear. This woman knocked my socks off in every way, and I loved her more than any woman ever. So of course I ended up chasing her right out of my life. Not fun. In the end, I initiated most of the time, and it was around 50-50 if we count all 2 years. Well, anytime, and I talk about this in my book, anytime a guy pursues a woman more than 20 or 30% of the time, it's just simply a matter of time before he gets friend-zoned or rejected or starts hearing things like, I need space, I'm confused, I'm unsure, I'm not sure where I'm able to be at this point in my life, that kind of bullshit. And if guys that follow what I teach, what you realize is in the beginning, the man is supposed to pursue. It's expected, and you really only have to do it for about the first 2 to 3 weeks, the first 2 to 3 dates. And once the woman starts to feel safe and comfortable, and as her attraction grows, she starts to pursue more and more. And then once she starts reaching out, because you're only going to go out on 1 date per week in the beginning, and then once she starts reaching out to you, then you can pretty much back off, wait to hear from her, and then make the next date. Because as she becomes more attracted and more interested and feels more chemistry, if you will, she's going to want to bond and connect more. And she'll actually facilitate that. And the beauty of that, that's totally naturally aligned with her feminine essence. Because feminine energy is all about bonding, connecting, opening up to receive love. And so what was happening here is he was basically, in his feminine, calling to bond, connect, open up to receive love, and acting like a woman, just like he said. And obviously, that turned her off. It's totally predictable. Just like the sun coming up in the east in the morning and setting in the west. While reading your book, I cringed afterwards at how I screwed up so badly and lost the love of my life. It was the most painful thing I ever experienced, and that's the rub. Because you're really emotionally anchored. And when you're emotionally anchored to somebody, your whole identity, especially when you're together for 2 years, your identity becomes totally associated with being with her and in a relationship. And then when she starts pulling away, you start fearing losing her. And because you're in a fearful state, you start trying to do things. Because as men, masculine energy is all about purpose, drive, mission, succeeding, accomplishing, breaking through barriers. And so you think you have to do something to fix it. And what happens is, just like he said, he became needy, he became insecure, basically a big mangina. And then it's a matter of time before you get blown off. But on the bright side, it pushed me to find your work. The way I look at things, and I say this all the time, is what happened, happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way. You got to a point in your life, and you hit the wall, metaphorically. And therefore, you started looking for solutions, and then came across my work. After screwing things up by making her my life and hanging out too much and acting all needy and dopey, things weren't the same anymore. She wasn't in love anymore. She wanted space. I feared the final breakup, and I had fucked up so badly already that it was hard to turn the tables, even though I started reading your book and watching your videos. Yeah, especially, the other thing to consider is he's lived his whole life this way. He's lived his whole life with a certain type of belief system that has driven his actions. Remember, people will act consistently with how they view themselves to be, whether the view is accurate or not. And I think he's early 30s, so you can imagine he's got over 3 decades of being this way, and it's not until he gets to his 30s when he's with somebody that he really cares about that manifest, or that weakness really manifests itself. Because on some level, all men have to deal with this. Some guys more than others. Obviously, guys that grow up in a happy family where mom and dad are happy and in love with each other and the kids are loved, they don't have that fear of loss. They're not going to have those needy tendencies because they feel that they're enough. They feel special. They feel loved and lovable, unlike the kind of family that I grew up in. I did the unusual movie cringe where the guy brings a gift to his distant wife and confesses love for her, thinking that it changes her into wanting him again, just to see her shrug it off and say, "Thanks, but I need space." In other words, you figured buying a gift would, in essence, fix the relationship. It was a bribe for sex in a relationship, or for her to stay with you. I found your work way before the final breakup, so I had studied your 7 principles to get an ex back almost 10 times. I correctly stated what I wanted and I walked away. She had lost attraction and didn't want to be with me anymore. She really, really wanted to stay friends, but I wanted her back romantically, so I had to walk away even though it was really hard. It's not easy, but at that point, you start to realize that the more you do, the more you chase, the more you pursue, and the more she says, "I need space." You know, some guys just don't stop, and it gets them to they take it to the extreme where she changes their numbers or gets a restraining order against him. I've had plenty of emails over the years where I've discussed those kinds of situations as well. After 4 months of walking away, she came back saying that she can't live without me. Scarcity creates value. She had an amazing attitude change. I set a date and instantly we had sex and did it the whole evening. This would have never happened if I had stayed as friends. That's absolutely correct. After that, she's been cold. Usually she texts the next day after our hangout, have fun, and hook up evenings, but after that, nothing for a few weeks. Then she sent a few pictures and something about how intense and busy her life is now. Well, the only reason a woman is saying that is because, again, she's trying to create space and distance. Because obviously, if I look at her actions, I can tell more than likely you're probably still reaching out and texting. You're not letting her do 100% of it. Because what you got to understand is when somebody gets rid of you, they say, "I don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore." They're making a unilateral decision to say, "You're fucking out of here." And therefore, since they're the one that end the relationship, they have to be the one to rekindle things. In other words, you got to flip the script and look at it instead of thinking, "I got to get her another chance with her, I got to get her back," to, "She needs to earn me back. I was willing to stay with her and work it out, and she wasn't. Therefore, she has to come to me." I tried to set a date, but basically got ignored. Yeah, there's another guy in the picture, and that's going to be another reason for vacillating back and forth, and that's why it's so critically important when you're in these situations like this. You got to know the book backwards and forwards, because you're also going against your emotional conditioning and your programming and your belief systems. In other words, your beliefs are in conflict with your goals, which are obviously you want to be with her. And plus, she's got 2 years of being with you, so you've emotionally conditioned her to expect you to be a certain way. And she said and you could be great for a week or two in a situation like this, but you could screw up on one date, one phone call, and acting needy or desperate again, and you're just going to totally ruin all the attraction. It's as if you could have done everything right for the first 2 to 3 weeks when she started coming back, but then you start pursuing her instead of letting her do 100% of it, and it's like you just erase those 2 to 3 weeks of attraction that you had built. You know, it's like what I talk about baking a cake in the oven. You put a cake in the oven, you got to let the thing bake, and it's got to take the time instead of opening the oven every 5 minutes going, "Is it done yet?" It's just like that with sexual polarity. You keep opening the oven door, you take all the heat comes out of the oven, and you ruin all that sexual polarity. And then she goes back to feeling neutral and not sexually attracted to you. And on top of this, you got another guy in the picture who she doesn't have a long history with. But obviously he's not doing everything right because she's still vacillating and bouncing back and forth between you and him. And that's really a direct reflection of how you're showing up. So when you're doing things right, she's all over you. When you're doing things wrong and you move back into your feminine energy, she bounces to the other guy because she's testing for strength. And when she senses that strength, she pursues and has more attraction for you. When she senses weakness, she withdraws and goes to the other guy to test his strength. but she still came back to me and had sex with me even though the other guy is still in the picture. That should tell a lot. She's unsure about him, and no matter what she said about me, she's unsure of me too. Because that's a reflection of you. You're unsure. You're not completely 100% of the time in your masculine. I have had so many, like I had an email, a client just recently that I had, guy was very religious. He was a very successful dude. And one of those no sex until marriage kind of things. And I've had hundreds of clients over the years in situations like this. No sex till marriage. He was a good, loyal husband. And his wife still fucking cheated on him. Obviously, he did things wrong in the marriage that caused her to lose attraction. But at the end of the day, he believed because of his religious beliefs and being faithful, and supposedly his wife had the same beliefs, she still cheated on him. And so he's obviously out of that marriage. And a new woman he started dating who's like 10, 15 years younger than his ex-wife, she was a virgin. And he took one night in the heat of passion, because he's been following my work since his divorce, he created an opportunity for sex to happen, and she got so turned on, she's like, I don't care. I don't want to wait. I want you inside me. And then obviously afterwards, she got all upset, started crying. I told you I wanted to wait. She felt guilty. But at the end of the day, if you look at her actions, she's attracted to him. In the heat of the passion, again, she made her choices based upon what she felt. Her belief system was in conflict with what she was feeling inside. But at the end of the day, because the emotions were so strong and the sexual polarity and attraction was so strong, it didn't matter. And she gave up her virginity, but she felt incredibly guilty about it. And what he was struggling with, because he's still religious, he's like, well, I want to wait till marriage. But at the end of the day, he did that in his first marriage, and yet his wife still cheated on him. And when I was coaching him, he's like, I don't really want to wait to have sex again, because his girlfriend was adamant, well, that's not going to happen anymore until we get married. No more sex until we get married. But that's not what he wanted. But he was afraid of upsetting her and pissing her off, because obviously she got really upset, really emotional. And the important thing for him is he's starting to vacillate and bounce back and forth. And so I got him focused on his truth, which was he wanted to be with her romantically and sexually. He didn't want to wait for sex until marriage. And at the end of the day, if you look at both their actions, what's important to them? Hanging out, having fun, and hooking up. And so I said, if that's your truth, that that's what you want, then you got to stick to it. If she wants to talk about it or she's upset, obviously use what I talk about and how to communicate with women effectively and the communication techniques that are in the back of the book to open her up, when she feels guilty. Because over time, that will go away. And so he sent me an email just recently that they had a really great weekend. I just said focus on the 3 H's. Hang out, have fun, hook up. Don't complicate things. Because if you're unsure and you're trying to seduce her and you're unsure of it and then you start apologizing for it, even if you hook up again, she's going to be really pissed off. And the reason she's pissed off is because you're not centered. Because a woman's going to feel safe and comfortable when you're 100% in your masculine, and that makes her feel safe and comfortable to be 100% in her feminine and override her religious beliefs that obviously are in conflict with what her heart is feeling. So he created this really amazing time for them over this past weekend. He did a great job on the date. He had candles, the whole 9 yards, music, the whole thing. And they had great sex again. And it was wonderful. And she started busting his balls afterwards. And he basically, in a humorous way, said, yeah, I could tell when you were screaming my name out loud that it really bothered you. And she chuckled and laughed and said, well, I'm still not happy about it, but no matter what, I'm with you. I'm 100% in. Now, if he had been laying there in bed and started going, but, and started trying to justify his actions instead of teasing her playfully, because his purpose is he wants to hang out and have fun and hook up. He's not interested in waiting till marriage. Because he was centered, he was sure of himself, he was charming, he was playful. She busted his balls about it a little bit. She tested him, but because he was 100% centered, she submitted and is cool with doing something that's against her supposed religious beliefs. At the end of the day, those are somebody else's beliefs anyways, not hers. She's just adopted what somebody else had told her. And it's why you always look at what people do, not what they say. But again, when a woman senses weakness in you, she's going to test you. And that's what my client did. I've had hundreds of clients, especially ones that are in really ultra religious. I coach a lot of people in the Middle East. And you can imagine, where some women get, some places you get stoned to death for having sex outside of marriage. You can imagine how risky it is. But at the end of the day, people are people. They do what they want to do. And if you're unsure of it, if you're unsure of yourself and what you want, it's going to cause a woman to be unsure of you. And when you're unsure, it also causes her to get more pissed off. And if this client of mine hadn't handled himself beautifully, she'd have gotten pissed off at him. And instead, she was purring like a kitten. Even though she teased him about it and busted his balls about it a little bit, he was centered. He was a charming James Bond, used a little bit of humor and a little bit of naughtiness in there, and it just totally dissolved it. But it's more of an art than a science. It's not just throwing a technique at it. It's who you are. It's embodying this. It's believing in yourself, believing in your core. Because at the end of the day, if you believe that sex outside of marriage is fine, if like in that particular client's case, he's accepted that and that's who he is, then you got to live that truth, even if it means you lose the relationship altogether. It's kind of like what you see here is that all men struggle with this. It's like I'll use an analogy like from the military because I come from a military family. I mean, everybody in my family other than me and my brother have served going back over 100 years. And one of the things that obviously anybody that's been in combat or has friends or family that's been in combat, it's like when people are shooting at you and you're hearing that crack of bullets going over your head or bombs are exploding around you. Like my dad would be on base in Vietnam in the middle of the night. The VC would literally, for 2 weeks, they would walk across the Cambodian border and set these little rockets in the mountains. And so there was his base where he was at, and then on the other end, there's the mountains, there's his base, and there was the airfield. And so the Viet Cong, what they were trying to do is they had these rockets, they would put on timers, they'd set them, and then they'd start walking back, take 2 weeks to get back, and they'd pick up another rocket and do the same thing. And so they might set these rockets to go off a day or two later, and sometimes they'd fall short. They wouldn't hit, they wouldn't hit the airport. They end up falling, right where he's at. One of them hit the shitter, which is, a couple hundred yards of where he's at. 2, 3 in the morning, and you hear a giant explosion. Anybody that's gotten shot at or had somebody trying to kill you on the other side, your natural instinct is to run and to get away or curl up. When it's really loud, to curl up in a fetal position and just become paralyzed with fear. And it's like what they teach people in combat to do is to overcome, because you have to overcome that fear. And the way you overcome that, it's like letting go of your attachment to your life. And you even saw that in Band of Brothers. They did a really great job, in my opinion, of portraying that, where they had the shoulders shaken, and it's accepting that you're already dead. And if you accept that you're already dead, then in essence you can override that fear of wanting to run away. And then the soldier can engage and be who he needs to be in that moment. And that's what all guys kind of struggle with. It's like, in other words, so in this particular case, and how does that apply to a relationship? Well, he wants this woman back more than anything. But his fear of loss, fear of losing her, causes to do things that are the polar opposite of his natural masculine essence. When he does the right thing, she's attracted to him. When he's willing to lose it completely and let it go forever, even if he never hears from her again, she's all over him. It's what in Zen, it's that non-attachment to your outcome. It's putting your intention out there, saying this is who I am, this is what I want. And if I can't get what I want, obviously the universe has something else in store for me down the road. But you have to be truthful and congruent with who you are. So he says, did she just come back for a one-night stand? No, you're being a floppy cock. You're still vacillating back and forth. And plus, there's another guy in the picture. So if you're doing more things right than wrong, she's spending more time with you. And when you're fucking up, probably calling her, pursuing her, saying things you shouldn't be saying, you literally are driving her right into the other guy's arms, and she's just looking for the strength. Who's the strongest guy? In other words, who's the one who's lost that fear of death, if you will, that acceptance of death, acceptance that, in other words, the acceptance that you might lose her forever and being okay with that as long as you've stated what you want and you're not willing to compromise. Obviously, he ain't interested in going back in the friend zone, and he ain't interested in pursuing her, or he shouldn't be interested in pursuing her and chasing her. She did talk a lot about how much she missed me after I walked away for good, and in the end, she just couldn't be without me, saying I brought so much to her life and praising our unbelievable connection and sex. She basically said that we're soulmates, but after that night, she's been cold. I know she's sometimes legit busy. Again, the fact that you're even talking about her being busy tells me that you're focused on and you're upset with the fact that you're not spending enough time with her. You're still attached. You're still trying to force it. You still haven't let go. The strongest negotiating position is being able to walk away and mean it. No contact means no contact forever. That means unless she reaches out, you're never going to fucking speak again. And that's the analogy that I use with soldiers in combat, overcoming that fear to run away when the bullets are whipping overhead and the explosions are going off around you. It's that fuck it, I have to do what I've been trained to do. I have to finish the mission. Despite the consequences, despite what happens to me. If they get me, at least I'm going to take a few of those sons of bitches with me. It's that kind of fucking attitude. In other words, if she doesn't treat me the way I wanted and she doesn't come back completely and she chooses another guy over me, I will find somebody else. I'm okay with that outcome. Even if it hurts, which it will, you have to be okay with it. But it seems like her attraction towards me isn't good after all, even though her words told me a completely different story. Again, look at her actions. Women will respond to you as a direct reflection of how you're showing up as a man. And again, this is a guy over the course of his relationship vacillated back and forth between being a man and being a woman. So she might be really busy and have hard times, and it's not a good moment to see me, or the other guy is back on, and that's why she ignores my trying to set up a date when she contacts. Again, there's something else going on. Something you're doing, something you're saying, a vibe that you're giving off, being upset that you're not spending enough time together, that it's not happening faster, that another guy is still in the picture. You should also be dating other women. Because again, if you've lost your attachment to getting her back, then you should be doing the right thing and dating other women and exploring other options. But because she's got two guys, she's in the strongest position because she has two choices. You have no choice. In other words, having one person is not a choice. Having two is a dilemma, and three is a real choice. What do I do now? Nothing. Your job as a man is to create an opportunity for sex to happen, to live your life, and to move towards the kind of relationship that you want. You invite her to hang out, she blows you off or she's non-responsive, then you do nothing. I really, really love this woman, obviously. She was my best friend and lover, and it pains me that she's not like that anymore. That's the problem. You're attached to her. You have no other options. And it's really hard. What does the book say? What does the 7 Principles Get Next Back say? You should have other people in your life that you're dating. Especially when you're trying to learn this stuff. Because it makes it almost impossible to do everything right. Do I confront her about the ignoring the meetup question and the dissonance between her words and her actions? Well, next time you're together, obviously after you've had sex, when you're laying in bed and you're talking, you say, you know what? There's a couple times when you've reached out and I've tried to make a date and you just blow it off or ignore me. That's fucking rude as hell. You know, we got 2 years of history together, and it's disrespectful, and I don't appreciate that. And if you want to continue seeing me and exploring this, don't just fucking ignore me. Because if you keep doing it, this just ain't going to work. We have to have mutual respect. It's best to do that when you're together in person, naked in bed. That's the best time to bring up those kinds of touchy subjects, as opposed to trying to do it over the phone or through text, because then you're just going to come off as being needy. It's better to have especially those kinds of conversations in person. The illusion of action creeps onto me all the time. And that's the rub right there. Because I can look at her actions, because if a lot of the email, he kind of presents it like he's doing everything right and waiting to hear from her. But he just says here also, illusion of action creeps on me all the time. And, people bullshit themselves and they try to bullshit me. And like I said, I look at what people are doing and I can read right between the lines and tell exactly what's going on. And so he's not doing everything as perfect as he tries to portray himself. These little sentences like that give it away. I have to do something, but maybe what I should do now is nothing. Exactly. You're not following 7 Principles Get Next Back, and you're not following what's in the book. And you just admitted that the illusion of action is a problem. Wait to hear from her and set the date? Yep. You have to let her come to you. This is not somebody you just started dating. Your pursuit of this woman is over forever. For the rest of your life, it's over. The only way you're going to get back together is if it's her idea. Why? Because it was her idea to dump you. It was her idea to come back to you and also be dating some other dude. You should be dating, if you had 2 or 3 other women in your life, your vibe would be different. You'd be in an abundance mentality. Right now, you're in a scarcity mentality. You're in a fearful state. And so you're doing things that are causing you to come off still as needy and desperate. And you got to remember, you conditioned her to expect you to be a certain way. So every time you slip up when you're trying to reattract somebody like this, you're causing the attraction that she was starting to develop to just evaporate. I've read your book now 11 times and I've watched your best videos multiple times, but old habits are still so badly ingrained when it comes to a woman for whom I'm head over heels. Again, that's why I haven't she's dating another guy and you don't really know what she's doing with him when you're not around. You don't know if it's going to work out or not with her. And it's you're in a much stronger negotiating position when you have multiple offers, if you will, borrowing a term from real estate. I'm hooking up with other women currently, but they're nothing compared to this woman. I'd love to get her back for real. Any advice? She really has proved that she loses interest when my feelings are clear, but she blows my phone up when they are unclear. It's pretty obvious. But you can see, the biggest problem is he's totally emotionally anchored to the way he's been his whole life. And it's a struggle. If this was somebody that he had just met, it'd be a lot easier. How should I proceed knowing this? Let go of it. You got to look at it as she's just another opportunity. She's just another potential girlfriend, even though you got 2 years of history with her. I think I already know what I need to do, but it feels like I need confirmation. I don't want to confront her, but should I communicate about this situation with her? Again, that's more of illusion of action. I got to do something. I got to have the talk. I got to confront her. That'll just fuck things up if you confront her. Anyway, one thing I learned from this is the power of walking away for good and not staying as friends. It's very powerful. It's really negotiation, because you're saying, I love myself and I value myself enough to say, I'm not going to hang out and be your buddy. I'm not going to be your friend. I'm not going to be your backup while you date somebody else. All's fair in love and war. You're not committed to her. She's obviously not committed to you. Keep dating. Keep having fun with your friends. Keep having fun with these other women if you're truly dating other women. But again, I look at your actions and what you're doing and what you're struggling with. And like I said, what you've written here makes it sound a lot better than what's actually really going on. We all bullshit ourselves. The message is a bit long, but I think it's something that many people deal with when exes are coming back. Expect a donation. Well, I always appreciate donations. And if you're so inclined, you can go to my website and just click the donate button, or click the donate button on my YouTube channel. The relationship was romantically done, but 7 Principles of Getting an Ex Back really works. It works when you employ it consistently. You have to read the book 10 to 15 times. Or you can also get the audio version, which is available on iTunes or on audible.com. You can actually get it for free from audible.com if you sign up for their free trial, which I highly recommend. But the whole idea is repetition is the mother of skill. Successful repetition builds confidence. And so by reading or listening to the book 10 to 15 times, reviewing 7 Principles, Get an X back 10 to 15 times, dating other women. I mean, again, once you master this stuff and you get good at it, it's not an issue. But you're still in that phase where you're really trying to get to that place where you're in that sweet spot. You're in that groove of doing the right things all the time. Because you can see when you do the right things some of the time, it has an effect on her when you're doing the right things, a positive effect, and you're getting the results you want. But those other times when you're not doing the right things, that's what's creating the problem. That's what's causing her to bounce back and forth between you and the other guy. So, if you'd like to get my help personally, you can go to my website, click the Products tab at the top of your screen, and just follow the instructions for booking whichever coaching option works best for you. And I